The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports and the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association, connecting Virginians to their government. We are pleased to have Delegate Mark Cole, whose district includes the City of Fredericksburg, part of Spotsylvania County. Good to see you, sir.
And part of Stafford and Fauquier as well.
Great,
so,
great.
Yeah.
So what's happening in your district economically? How have those cities and the counties fared since the recession?
Yeah, they've done better than average. It has taken of course, the recession took a hit on everybody, but we've fared a lot better than most. Virginia as a state is doing better than the national average economically in our area. Is actually doing better than the state average. So while we certainly took a hit during the recession, it wasn't near as bad as a lot of other places.
And is your constituency fairly diverse?
Yeah, we have a fairly diverse constituency. Have a lot of people that commute up to Northern Virginia and Quantico. And so, traffic is always a big issue for them, and hopefully we'll be able to see some relief for those that have to commute up to D.C. and Northern Virginia in the coming years.
And in terms of local traffic, you and I were talking earlier because I live in Fredericksburg, that Route 3 corridor.
Yeah.
That traffic has improved over there.
Yeah, they've recently completed expansion of Route 3 there. Also synced up the traffic lights to try to maximize the flow on Route 3. So while it's still a congested area, traffic has, I think, gotten a lot better in the last year. And
there's some military installations in the immediate area as well. Fort A.P. Hill and Dahlgren, you already mentioned Quantico.
Yep.
To what extent does that have an impact on economic activities?
Yeah, they're definitely economic drivers for our area. We have a lot of military in the area, also former military contractors and federal employees that work at the different installations. So they're definitely a big part of the community and a big factor in our local economy.
Now, I know this year the initiation of implementation of the transportation funding bill is beginning, and I know priorities have to be set. What do you see happening in your district, if anything?
Well, there should be some more state revenues coming into the area to make some transportation improvements. I had a bill this year in the General Assembly to try to set set priorities for spending our transportation dollars. Basically, it said that if a project did not relieve congestion or improve safety, then it shouldn't be funded. The Transportation Committee decided to go with a different approach that just basically focused on the Northern Virginia and Tidewater areas where we have the greatest congestion. But again, it does still set some priorities and, of course, makes congestion relief and safety among the top priorities. And part of our transportation problem has been that we've been spending some of our transportation dollars on other things like roads that aren't necessarily designed to relieve congestion but are built kind of for economic development rather than really for transportation purposes. And that's fine if you want to do economic development. Those roads should be built with economic development dollars, not transportation dollars, as long as we've got the serious congestion problems that we do in our area in Northern Virginia.
And part of that transportation funding bill last year included an annual tax on hybrid vehicles of $64 a year. Apparently that will be repealed this year.
Yeah, I'm a co-patron of that legislation to repeal that. I thought it was an unfair tax to begin with and did not support it. But the legislation has passed the House and is now going over to the Senate for their consideration to repeal that tax. You shouldn't punish people for being more efficient, and that's kind of what this hybrid tax does. Hybrids still buy gas. They still use gasoline, so they do pay the gas tax, and some of the larger hybrids don't get as good a gas mileage as some of the smaller regular cars. Plus, they're a lot more expensive, so you pay more taxes initially when you buy them. So I think it was unfair to punish hybrid owners or single them out for an additional tax.
Now, that one doesn't cost much, as I recall.
No, it's a few $1 million. It will take a revenue hit, but again, I just think the fairness issue, you shouldn't punish people for trying to be more efficient.
Now, another part of that funding package still depends upon Congress taking action on the Marketplace Freedom Act, I believe, which will allow the Commonwealth and other states now to tax Internet out-of-state retailers.
Yeah. That portion was included in the bill that was passed last year, and it depends on Congress to enable the states to collect basically a sales tax on out-of-state Internet purchases. In Virginia, the tax has already been levied. It's just up to the individual to report when they do their Virginia tax returns how much they purchased from these online retailers that they didn't pay taxes on, and they're supposed to remit it at that time. However, the compliance rate for that is obviously very low. And so if Congress acts, this would be basically applying the sales tax to Internet purchases, which is kind of a double-edged sword. A lot of people enjoy saving a little bit of money when they make Internet purchases, but you also hear a lot from the local vendors who they have to charge the tax, and they're competing with these Internet companies.
The bricks and mortars.
Yeah, the bricks and mortar stores that are in our local community, and they see it as an unfair advantage given to the Internet retailers. So that's an issue that Congress is going to have to decide, and we'll see what happens there.
Now, if that doesn't occur, as I take it, there will be an increase.
Yeah, and see, I voted against the transportation package last year. I thought it was a bad time to be raising taxes. There's never a good time to raise taxes, but when the economy's weak, it's an especially bad time. I favored trying to take more of the current sales tax revenue and dedicating it to transportation without raising taxes, and a portion of that was included in the transportation package that former Governor McDonnell pushed. But there was also a lot of different taxes and fees that were included in it. And as you said, the Internet Fairness Act, or whatever you want to call it, was included in it, as well as if Congress doesn't take any action, then you're going to see another tax increase on I believe it's the sales tax. So, which again, I don't think is going to be good for the economy.
I want to take advantage of a committee that you chair, your expertise in that area, privileges and elections. And I know you were instrumental in authoring and shepherding through some legislation last year that will be effective sometime this year, relating to the necessity to produce some photo identification upon voting. Talk to us about What's happening in terms of implementation and how the public can learn what they need to comply with now?
Well, basically what you need is a government-issued photo ID in this year's elections. This will be the first year that it takes effect. It was passed previously, but we put a delayed enactment on it in order to try to get the word out and make sure everybody had an ID. Your driver's license will work. If you have just an ID card from DMV, that'll work. Any government issued photo ID, should be acceptable. And then if you go and you don't have your photo ID, you should still be able to vote a provisional ballot and then show your ID to the registrar at the next day or two, and then your vote will be counted. So nobody should be disenfranchised from voting because they don't have a photo ID. If you can't afford a photo ID, then there's provisions that you can get one through DMV for free. But again, 99% of the people out there already have a photo ID either through a driver's license or a state-issued ID card. You have to show a photo ID to get a lot of your prescriptions and make purchases and cash checks. So I don't think this is a particularly revolutionary step or anything like that. And I think what it'll do is help increase voter confidence in the integrity and outcome of the elections.
So I take it the State Board of Education, local registrars will be putting out more information about this.
Yeah. There should be plenty of information provided prior to the elections, and if you have any issues or questions, feel free to call your local voter registrar's office and they'll be able to help you.
Great. You're also on education. There are a lot of issues pending, not the least of which is the potential reform of the standards of learning. Some people say, especially teachers, students, and parents, there are far too many of those. I think there's 34 between K and K through 12 now.
Yeah.
What's your thinking on the reform of those standards of learning?
Well, I'm co-patroning legislation to reform the standards of learning and also to reduce the number of tests that have to be taken. Overall, I think the standards of learning have been a good thing. You look at our standardized test scores in Virginia, and they're doing very well. They're above the national average, and so you can see that our test scores, since we implemented the standards of learning, have been, I think, doing well. So I don't want to just do away with it, but certainly there's probably too many tests that are being done. We need to focus on the core areas, reduce the number of tests, and maybe improve the quality of the tests that are given.
And I guess some of the complaints relate to the teachers maybe teaching to the test because they are judged based upon that kind of a standard, that there's too much rote memorization and not enough teaching in terms of how to analyze things.
Yeah, I've heard that concern, and I used to work in Navy training for many years. And if you have a well-designed test that covers the objectives of the course, well, then I hope you're teaching to the test, because the test is supposed to see if you've mastered the objectives of the course. And so, this talk about, well, they're just teaching to the test, that's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you're covering the course objectives, and the test measures whether the student has a good grasp of what the material in the course was supposed to be covered. But again, we are looking at that, trying to maybe go from less of a memorization test and more to a critical thinking test. So that is part of the SOL reform package, and something that we're certainly looking at.
Now, you served at the local level as a member of the County Board of Supervisors, and you had to deal intimately with your local school districts. Are you hearing much from the local school districts regarding the ability of the state now to take over failing school districts, number one, and this new grading regime from A to F?
Yes, I have heard a lot about that, and certainly there's things that need to be worked out. As far as the state coming in and taking over a failing school, that issue will probably be decided in the courts, because the Virginia State Constitution gives the authority to run the schools to the local school board, not the state. However, there is some frustration. There's probably a handful of schools in the state that are in this situation where they've just failed to achieve passing scores on the SOLs year after year after year, and everybody knows it, and there's been efforts to try to remediate and improve the situation in these schools, and they just have not been making headway. So there's a lot of frustration on both the local and state level with how to deal with these schools. And so that's where this legislation came from last year, where the state would go in and basically take over a failing school. And it's not, if they failed 1 year or 2 years, it's ones that have consistently failed year after year and shown little signs of improvement. But again, that it's questionable whether or not the state actually has the authority to do that, given the restraints of the state constitution.
Reading, writing, and arithmetic, especially reading by the 3rd grade level, is a predictor of a lot of different things. Talk to us about the importance of ensuring that children read.
Well, reading is absolutely critical, because if you can't read well, then you're very limited. It affects you throughout all of your studies, not just in reading, and even in math. You can't read your textbook to figure out how to solve math problems and things like that. So reading is kind of the cornerstone of the education system for a child, and if they can't master reading, they're going to have difficulties throughout their life.
And it has a public safety component in the sense that sometimes that's used as a predictor of the necessity to build more correctional institutions.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's true.
A couple other perennial issues that still are with us in terms of education, especially K through 12, relates to the ability of a school district to determine when to start school, and then also those students who are homeschooled and their ability to participate in athletics.
Yeah.
Where are those going?
We'll see how they go. The pre-Labor Day opening bill last year, it passed the House and was defeated in the Senate. I'm sure it'll probably pass the House again this year. I don't know what the Senate will do with it. We have new leadership in the Senate now, so we'll see what happens there. I have concerns about it because the tourism and hospitality industry is really big in Virginia. It's where we get a lot of our tax revenue from to pay for our schools. And the Tourism and Hospitality Association tells us it's going to have a hit on their business. And so, as a consequence, it could have a negative impact on our tax revenues. So I've always had concerns about just giving carte blanche for any of the schools to open before Labor Day, because I'm afraid it may impact negatively our ability to fund the schools.
And on the T-BOE, the
T-BOE bill. And again, that bill will pass the House, and I don't know what will happen to it in the Senate. What it does, it gives local option to local school boards if they want to allow homeschoolers to participate in a school's extracurricular activities like sports and that type of thing. Then the local school board can make that decision. Right now, the Virginia High School League bans homeschoolers from participating in any sports, which again, all of our public schools are members of the Virginia High School League, so it's kind of like the Virginia High School League is making the decision for the local schools. saying you can't have homeschoolers on your team if you want to play in our league. And this would simply allow local school boards to make that decision and not the Virginia High School League.
There are a number of junior colleges in the district that you represent. Talk to us about why they are so important to the education of our youngsters and also adults.
Yeah, Germanna Community College is real big in the Fredericksburg area. It's been one of the fastest growing community colleges in the state system. They've got a really nice campus in Fredericksburg and in other parts of the area. And I'm an alumnus of Germanna Community College myself, so I'm a big supporter of the community colleges. I think they give the taxpayers their best higher education value, and also they also help the non-traditional college student, which is what I was when I went there. You know, somebody who is in the workforce and decides they need additional training or skills or a new skill set, then the community colleges, they cater more not just to the traditional student, but also to the night student and the weekend student and the working student. So they're a big part of our, I think, our workforce training initiative, and like I said, I've always been a big supporter of the community colleges.
And there's certainly a lot of encouragement that the Commonwealth provides those students, the 2+2 program, for example, and the tuition assistance grant program. Tell us why those are critical components of education.
Well, you know, basically the state saves money if a kid goes to a community college and then goes on to a four-year institution, rather than if the child went straight into the state four-year institution, because community colleges are cheaper. And so over the years we've passed laws to allow our four-year universities and community colleges to enter into 2+2 agreements where, you know, a college or university will accept the transfer credits from the community college, and also a grant program to help a community college student transition to a more expensive four-year university. So and a lot of the students are taking advantage of that now. Our community colleges, you know, have been growing, and again, it's not just the traditional college students that are taking advantage of the community colleges. A lot of adults who may have been displaced in the workforce and need refresher training or need to acquire new job skills are taking advantage of our community colleges.
And then we still have high school students who decide, for whatever reason, not to go further than junior college or an institution of higher learning, but who wants to develop a skill so that he or she can be gainfully employed. There's some talk now about more of an emphasis on vocational education.
Yeah, there is, and we have tried to do that in recent years, is to beef up our career and technical training programs at our high schools and also at the community colleges too. Because college is not for every child, you know, but every child does need to be able to go into the workforce so that they can support themselves and make a living. So certainly career and technical training at the high school level is a big part of that, and helping to prepare students right out of high school to give them job skills and to be able to go out and be productive in the labor force.
Now, we've got a number of great institutions of higher learning, both public and private. We've got Mary Washington, for example, in Fredericksburg.
I'm an alumnus of that institution, too.
You probably couldn't afford the tuition now.
I know, it's tough now. It's tough now.
So how do we address that?
Well, we have provided, you know, funding for our colleges and state colleges and universities to try to help them keep their tuition rates low. And I think Mary Washington, University of Mary Washington has done a very good job. They're probably one of the lowest in per student subsidies from the state, but they have one of the best academic reputations in the state. So, you know, they've done an excellent job there. But, you know, back during the recession, we had to make cuts, and certainly our state universities and colleges took their share of the hits. However, some of the universities and colleges just pass that cost on to the students through tuition increases, and where I think the focus needs to be is the leadership at these universities and colleges. They need to look at what they're doing to see if they can't do things more efficiently and at a lower cost, rather than just raising tuition and passing the cost on to the students who are already struggling financially.
A couple of big subjects in our remaining 3 minutes. One relates to Medicaid expansion. The other relates to mental health reform as a result of a tragedy suffered by one of your colleagues in the Senate, but an issue that's been with us for some time.
Sure.
So talk to us first about mental health reform and then your views on Medicaid expansion.
There is a bill working its way through the Assembly right now to try to address some of the issues as far as the emergency situation where somebody is a danger to themselves or others, getting them into a facility that can help them and stave off a tragedy like what happened earlier this year. So there is legislation working its way through the committees right now, and also appropriations is looking at that to see what type of funding would be needed to address that issue.
Then in terms of Medicaid expansion, but before, I think there is, the Senate bill has a longer period of time in terms of emergency detention than the House, as I recall. So that'll have to be worked out.
Yeah, anything will have to be worked out in conference committee between the House and Senate.
Right, and as you know, the Affordable Care Act was upheld, Obamacare last year. Left to the states, however, the decision to expand or not. The Commonwealth has taken the position it will not expand until the Medicaid Innovation Reform Commission studies the issue, gets needed reforms from the federal government, and at the state level, what's likely to happen?
Right now, I don't see the House going along with Medicaid expansion this year. There are just too many problems with the current Medicaid system. You've got a lot of doctors that won't accept it. Patients are getting substandard care, and the system is fraught with waste, fraud, and abuse. And so until we can really get a handle on reforming the system to make it more efficient and less susceptible to fraud, I just don't see what benefit you get out of expanding a broken system. And it will have major cost impacts on the state. It's already one of the fastest growing programs in the state budget, and expanding it right now is just going to put even more pressure on the state budget.
Very quickly, you represent some rural areas. There's a bill to allow hunting on Sundays now.
Yeah, that's already passed the House. Well, a scaled-down version just allows Sunday hunting on private property, and that's already passed the House. So I suspect that it will probably pass the Senate as well, and people will be able to vote to hunt on private lands on Sundays.
Great. Well, thank you for being with us today, Delegate Mark Cole.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association. That's it. See you later. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans. Mm-hmm.